Hey guys, welcome to Snake Nook. I'm Vanny and with me I've got Misty, little Misty. She's my spotted python and she's going to be helping me out with today's video as well as a couple of other snakes. The topic of this video is if you are thinking about getting your first snake and you don't want a ball python, you don't want a corn snake, then what species can you consider if you're a novice snake keeper? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to show you a few different species. Stay tuned. Well, guys, in this video, I'm going to share 3 different species of snakes that you can consider if you are a brand new keeper and you're looking to get your first pet snake. Now, the royal python and rat snakes like the corn snake, those are commonly thought of as beginner pet snakes, or that they are good for beginning keepers rather. But today I'm going to show you 3 species that are not a royal python, not a corn snake, that a new keeper may want to consider when deciding on a pet snake. The first one is the spotted python. Misty is almost a full-grown spotted python. She will soon be an adult. By the end of this year, 2025, she will be an adult snake. She's almost at her adult size. She may only put on maybe just couple more inches to a few more inches at the most in length, and her girth is not going to change a whole lot. So she's pretty much there at her adult size. Spotted python females can reach lengths of up to 4 feet. Commonly, they average at about 3.5 feet. Males can be a little smaller, maybe staying closer to the 3-foot length. But their girth, guys, is, look at this. She's not at all a heavy body python. She's a small python, very manageable. I've been holding her with the one hand, and very manageable for sure. These guys don't take up a lot of room, and most spotted pythons I think that you will meet will more than likely have a docile temperament, an easygoing demeanor, making them really good for people that are just getting into snake keeping, because they are pretty much easy to handle size-wise, temperament-wise, and they're easy to care for too. Of course, you've got to do your diligent research, and you've got to make sure that you know what you're getting into. The spotted python's humidity requirements are between 50 to 60%. They're quite hardy, so you don't have to work too hard at that humidity. They actually do really well in that 50 to 60% range of humidity. And temperature wise, mid 80s is where I keep her hot spot at, and she's really good with that. She's never really had any bad sheds for me. She does really well, she eats well, so all is going pretty well with the conditions that I have for her. The warm side is in the mid 80s, the cool side is in the mid 70s, and humidity stays between 50 to 60%, and that works for Misty. Her enclosure, she's currently living in a 36-inch by 18-inch by 18-inch EcoFlex enclosure, like one of those behind me, but smaller, because the ones behind me are 4x2x2s. But we are considering eventually upgrading her to a 4-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot enclosure, so that she can have more room to groove, because she will get a little bit bigger, but not by much. She is a female, so this is about as big as they get. Maybe this is like a male size as an adult. She'll get just a little bit bigger, not a whole lot. She eats medium mice, so 1 medium mouse every about 11 to 12 days or so is how often I feed her. It's 1 medium mouse. So even just what she eats will be easy to keep, because medium mice don't take up a whole lot of room. So that's pretty cool. If you're thinking of a species that is kind of rare, in the hobby and you're thinking of a species that is easily handleable, this is it. The spotted python would be a good fit for a new keeper because their husbandry, their care is actually pretty cool, pretty simple to manage. What about considering a snake in the Liasis genus for your first pet snake? Some of the snakes that are in the Liasis genus include the olive python, the Macklot's python, but those are big snakes. So what if you could consider a smaller one? So you're a new keeper, you're new to snake keeping, you want to get experience handling your snake and interacting with your snake. I think that the white-eyed python is a very good choice. They've got a bit of a reputation at first, so you may have to work with your white-eyed python because it may not be just right off the bat docile and handleable, but with a little bit of work, they certainly come around. I have two of them. Both of my white-eyed pythons have been pretty easygoing, pretty docile since the very beginning. Just a little bit of building some trust, a little bit of handling to let them know that I meant them no harm. And they certainly came around really quickly. I have had success holding these guys and have had no issues. I've never been bitten by either one of them. And actually recently Ember visited the classroom. She was a snake education ambassador. So that turned out really well. The kids were all looking at her, wanting to touch her and hold her. And some of them helped me with holding her. So it turned out to be a really good experience. So Ember has even been a snake education ambassador. So I definitely thought about her because the reason why I even found out about the Liasis savwensis is because I was researching the Antaresia pythons. And that's when I learned that they were once classified under the Liasis genus, and that made me really curious. So I was looking into all that information and eventually came across this species, which is a rather rare species in today's herpetoculture, but they can be found, guys. You can find these. You have to just look and really do your research. You can find these as pets bred in captivity. You just have to really put some time and effort into it. There aren't very many people working with them that I know of, but there are some people out there. So just do your research and you'll come across a few people that are working with them in captivity, breeders that are working with Liasis savwensis. So if you really have your heart set on a snake from the Liasis genus and you want to keep your snake not too big, then this would be a really good option. So she's not going to get a whole lot bigger than this. She will put on some size, a little bit more length, a little bit more girth, but she's not going to be a big snake. So so easygoing, easy to work with. She's currently eating a large mouse, and that just about suits her really well. So they don't eat big prey even as adults. She may at the most probably take a extra large mouse maybe. We'll see how big she gets, but right now she is taking a smaller large mouse, if that makes sense. So when I look at the large mice that I have, when I'm gonna thaw out mice, I look for a smaller large, and I think that's really good for her right now. So their feeders are not expensive, and they don't take up a whole lot of room. Once they are full grown, I think that a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot would be really good. And the humidity requirements, what seems to be working for these guys is about that 60% mark. So she did recently have a shed, and the humidity did drop to the lower 50s, and she seems to have a little piece of stuck shed there at the end. Everything else came off just fine. So I will probably have to work with that last piece that she's got, but I say that's because the humidity was not up to about 60. So I think that's a pretty good humidity when it comes to the white-eyed python. The warm side, I'm keeping her in the mid 80s. That's working out. She seems to prefer the cooler temperatures actually. So the cool side is actually in the lower to mid 70s, and I've noticed that she does have a preference for the cooler side of her enclosure. So these guys perhaps don't require that intense warm side in the upper 80s or 90 degrees. I think that's a little too warm for them. I think their comfort zone, at least mine, they seem to like about 80 degrees. Well guys, if you're looking for a pretty cool, pretty rare snake that you can keep as your first pet snake, I would say you can definitely consider the Lyaeus savoensis, or the white-eyed python. One more species to consider if you're a new keeper and you're wondering what could possibly be your first pet snake, not a royal, not a corn snake, then you may want to think about a carpet python. This is Torrent. He's my jungle carpet. He's a sub-adult going on 3 years old. He is going to get bigger, guys. This is a medium-sized snake, and he is going to put on more girth as he ages. So this snake will be quite a bit bigger than he is now. He's not at all done growing, so there will be more of him when he reaches full adulthood. And I think the carpet python just makes such an interesting pet snake because they are so much fun to interact with. In fact, I really like the Morelia genus. I like carpet pythons so much. I have inland carpets, I have this jungle carpet, I have a Centralian carpet, and I now also have Morelia viridis, a green tree python. I've really come to like the Morelia genus. And if you're thinking of getting a first snake, your very first snake, these guys are a lot of fun. They do have a reputation, carpet pythons do. When they're little, they can be a bit feisty, they can be a bit defensive, so you're gonna have to put in some time, you're gonna have to be patient with your snake, you're gonna have to work for that relationship, but it pays off really well. So Torrent is a perfect example of a snake that we really had to work with because when he was little, when we first got him, he was a highly defensive baby. But we got him conditioned to handling pretty quickly, I'd say. We didn't have to work with him too hard for too long, about 2 months or so, and he was good to go. We were able to hold him and interact with him, take him out and have pleasant outings with him. And it didn't take a whole lot of time. I thought it was gonna take longer, but he proved me wrong. He was actually, I would say, fully conditioned to handling in less than 3 months. So I just had to put in a little bit of time, effort, and patience. My husband certainly helped a lot with Torrent because he was always there taking the lead, helping Torrent overcome his fear of humans. And it all worked out really well. We did take a few bites. I'm going to be really transparent. We did take a few bites from this little guy, but he was so tiny, guys, and we knew that he was afraid. His defensiveness was because of fear. So once he figured out that he could trust us, that we meant him no harm, that the humans are good to him, it all came together, and he's a lot of fun to hang out with, guys. He's a little squirrely right now because he was in his warm side when I went to go get him, but he typically calms down pretty quickly. He'll be a little energetic at first, and then he'll calm down a bit. He does love to explore. He likes to hang out. He's a highly interactive individual, so he's really good. Now, his care requirements aren't too bad, actually. Even though he is going to be about a medium-sized snake or so, right now he is doing really well in his 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. It's enough room for him. He can fully stretch out, and he prefers going on his bed tray. I'm pointing to the bed tray in the back. He loves his bed tray, so the temps aren't too difficult to work with either. I give him a temperature gradient of about 74 degrees to about 89 degrees, and he seems to prefer somewhere along the middle of the road. I would say maybe like 80 degrees seems to be pretty good for him because he spends time on the bed tray, and the temperature around that area is usually around 80 degrees, 79, 80. And so that's where he spends most of his time. He is an arboreal species, and he does like to stay off the ground level of his enclosure. Overall, he's a lot of fun, guys, to hang out with and to have. He's also one of my snake education ambassadors. He has been to the classroom, he has visited my students, and he did rather well. I will be putting out a video not too long from now where I show you a few of my snakes that have visited the classroom and how good snakes can be for education, guys. But if you are a new keeper considering a few species to get as a first time snake for you, certainly you can think of the carpet python. Look into the different subspecies, guys. Do your research. First and foremost, do your research. Look at the space that you have available to keep your snake, because you may be thinking you're going to be able to set up a 4x2x2, but then that could change. And once you start setting things up, you may realize that it takes a little more room than you thought. So maybe you're going to have to consider something a little smaller. And certainly that's where the spotted python would be a really good fit, or any of the Antaresia pythons, because some of those can do really well in a 36 inch by 36 inch, 36 inch by 18 inch by 18 inch. Alrighty, guys, well, thank you so much for staying with us throughout the video. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about these three species and how they can make good pets for that beginner keeper. And they're relatively easy to care for. They are not giant snakes, and they can be pretty simple husbandry wise, care wise. It can be pretty easy to manage. So I hope that this video has been helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your company here at Snake Nook, and we hope to see you here again next time. Y'all have a good one. Bye.